Give me 1 second. Testing. Are we good? I think we're good. Sorry about that, guys. I had there we go. All right. I had some audio people coming and working on some stuff today, and clearly it did not go according to plan. So, yeah, we are good to go. What I was saying is happy hour. I do have a 4:45 hard out, so my apologies on the delay there to begin with. I do have to get my kid to soccer practice, but hope your Friday is treating you well. Hopefully your Friday's doing better than my audio was doing. Fun faux pas to begin the thing here, but as I was talking about to myself moments ago, really excited about this game on Sunday. Hope you guys are all having a great weekend. Injury report, I'm sure, is going to be a large part of what we're going to talk about today. Kudos to Brian Gutekunst and company for having a situation where you could theoretically be without Romeo Dobbs, Christian Watson, and Luke Musgrave, and you could still have a 5-man, group out on the field that consists of Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton at wide receiver, Tucker Kraft at tight end, and Josh Jacobs at running back. And you could feel really good about your starting 5 out there, and then still have depth pieces too, like Malik Heath, like a Ben Sims, and Emmanuel Wilson at running back. So that'll be interesting. Offensive line. My assumption is Elton Jenkins is probably good to go. He said earlier this week he's good to go. He practiced the majority of the week. That'd be my guess. But Jordan Morgan, a question mark there. And of course, Elton is officially questionable. You just don't want both of those guys out. You can probably get, away with one or the other, but ideally you would like the other one to start. And then, we'll see with Jair and Carrington Valentine, both of them listed as questionable, both practice again. So that's a great sign, but definitely going to be a very interesting and active list when we get that on Sunday, and will be very much worth monitoring with all the injuries. And in Romeo's case, the, personal matter that he's dealing with, whatever that is, hopefully, and most importantly, hopefully everything's okay with Romeo and it's nothing too serious and he can get back sooner rather than later. But you never like to see something like that. So hopefully he's doing okay, and certainly thoughts with him. Great Carmen episode. How did you guys meet? Carmen and I think I met her once at Lambeau when she was still being an NFC North reporter for Fox Sports. I don't know if we actually officially introduced or whatever, but just honestly, we had followed each other on Twitter for a while. And last year when I was looking at putting a lineup together and kind of what I wanted to do and kind of my vision for it, I reached out to her to see, hey, could we do an NFC North thing every week? And she was open to it, and she's been absolutely awesome. So, so excited that she is back for a second year and that we get to talk to her each and every week and kind of pick her brain on all things NFL and NFC North. So that's been really, really fun, and glad she's definitely a part of the team. Ralph, now we don't have the personnel for a 4-3 scheme, according to Carmen. Come on. I don't think she meant it like that. I will say I probably disagree a little bit with Carmen saying that the 2 defensive ends aren't big enough. I definitely think LVN, Preston Smith, Rashawn Gary are big enough to play that position. If anything, I probably lean a little bit more towards Justice's take on that side of things, where I kind of want the more bendy-ish edge rushers, the guys that can win a little bit quicker, like the Brian Burnsy types of the world. So yeah, I would actually almost prefer a little bit more speed and bendability in this sort of scheme, but I definitely don't think that it is something where they don't have the personnel to play a 4-3. And really those, I think that was the only one that Carmen was questioning. I don't think she was saying defensive tackle, linebacker, corner or safety or anything like that. But yeah, overall, I still think Green Bay has the players that they need to be successful in this scheme. They just need to play better. And I'll say this, they have the body types. They have if you look at them, Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden, Carl Brooks, they fit that 3 technique role. Slayton and Clark theoretically should fit more of that, nose tackle type role in a 4-3. I think Smith, Gary, Enigbare, and LVN all fit 4-3 ends. I think the linebackers fit. Now, in a true 4-3, would you maybe want more of a strong side linebacker at one of those spots? Probably, but they don't really play a traditional true 4-3 when it comes to linebackers. And most of the time it's 2 interchangeable linebackers, and they definitely have the bodies for that. The corners fit well in the system, again, theoretically, and the safeties fit as well. So I think the right types are there. But now the question is can you get these players playing together and put together a cohesive defense week in and week out with consistency that we haven't seen? It's been some ups and downs. There's been some things that have been similar to what we saw from Joe Barry at times. There have been some new additions, meaning some turnovers, which has been a positive, but they have to be better. They have to be more consistent, and they have to be able to get off the field on some key plays like a 3rd and 14 on that first drive a week ago. Preston, if Gary plays like this all year, is there any way for us to trade him, or do you think we'd give him another year? Well, I need to take a look at his contract first. I don't think he's going anywhere. I think it's probably more worth it to just be hopeful that he gets back to playing the way that he's capable of. So theoretically, you could release him in the off. Like, I don't think they're going to get a trade for him if he would play like this. I guess it's not entirely impossible. It's not entirely impossible. I mean, it'd be like 1 year, 15.5 million is what and then like team options for 18 and 21 million the years after that. So it's really not like completely unbearable for a trade. They could get off of that contract with no dead money if they did a post June 1st. So I'd say no dead money, but it would actually be quite a bit of dead money. It would just be spread out where you could actually save money. So if they did it pre-June 1st, they would actually be even. They basically they would save and cut in dead money almost the exact same amount. If they did it post-June 1st, they could actually save 17 million next year. So there are ways to get off of it next year, but I would be very stunned if Rashawn Gary wasn't back on this team in 2025 in some capacity. All right. So, yep, Omer, we went over the injury report, obviously. So Devontae, well, let's just kind of go over it because I think it's interesting. Devontae Wyatt out means Colby Wooden's going to get an opportunity. I think you will expect to see a lot of Clark, Slayton, and Brooks as a primary 3-man rotation on that defensive line with, I would guess, Colby Wooden somewhere between 8 to 12, 8 to 14 snaps, maybe somewhere in that range. Watson and Romeo, in all likelihood, being out with them being doubtful. Again, I think you're going to see a ton of Wicks, Reed, and Melton with some Malik Heath. Like, I would expect all 4 of those guys to be over 35 to 40 snaps. And then I think the interesting question there is who will be the 5th wide receiver that you call up from the practice squad. They have 3 options: Cornelius Johnson, they have TJ Luther, and then from the preseason and undrafted free agent, Julian Hicks. Hicks has been here the longest, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. Remember last year or last week, they had the ability to choose from corners, and they did not go with Kalen King, who had been here since the start of camp. They went with Kamal Haddon, who had been here much shorter. So I think that 5th wide receiver would be the interesting one there. Questionable Jair. My guess is with him practicing back-to-back days that he will play. Elton Jenkins, my guess is he plays. Edgerrin Cooper, my guess is, I don't know. He did go out there on Friday, so I think that one might be the most true. Him and Morgan, I think, are the most true questionable of, like, I honestly don't know. My guess is with Musgrave not practicing again on Friday that he does not play. And then I think the question there, we'll see a lot of Tucker Kraft. I think we'll see more of Ben Sims. And then who's the practice squad tight end that they call up? There's basically a couple options. They could go with Messiah Swinson, who they just got back from Carolina, who was on their 53 for the first 3 weeks of the season. And then Andrew Beck, who can kind of do the H-back, fullback stuff, and a little bit of tight end would be the other option. With Musgrave being out, I could see it being Swinson. I think they're a little bit more like to like, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was Andrew Beck as well. Valentine, I'm leaning towards will play. And then Jonathan Ford, there's no reason for them to probably activate him this week. So that would be my guess is, who's in, who's out. And again, I think the real questionable ones are probably Edgerrin Cooper and Jordan Morgan. When is the awesome duo of Andy Herman and Mina Kimes episode coming? I will just say, Kevin, that if all goes according to plan, it is coming. Not going to say when, not going to say for sure, but if all goes according to plan, we could see that sometime in the future. Zach Tom, lowest pressure rate in the NFL after week 4. Xavier McKinney, top ranked safety as per PFF. 2 guys playing really, really good football. And I love the consistency from both. Like, when you talk about building a roster and having really great players, to me, it really starts with consistency, that you can go out and trust players to be really good every single week. And so far, I mean, through basically a year and a half now for Zach Tom, that's been the case. Like, you can just go out there and trust that he's going to put a really great game out there almost every single week. And with Xavier McKinney, he is 4 for 4 in games so far, not just with picks. Like, take the picks aside, those are great, but just the way that he's playing overall, he's been really, really good through his first month as a member of a Green Bay Packer, at least on the for games. But yeah, those two are playing fantastic football. Do you think Hafley prefers using only 4 defensive tackles in the game? Colby Wooden has been inactive, and Jonathan Ford was designated to return off IR in the preseason. Could complicate the roster math. Yeah, I don't have any real concerns. Usually that stuff just kind of works itself out, but it does seem like, all the snaps when everyone's healthy are just going to be eaten up by Slayton, Clark, Brooks, and Wyatt. And I think that's the right move. I think Wooden is good, but I think he's clearly number 5. And he's a depth piece. And this week they're going to need him. And hopefully he can go out and show that he's worth getting more snaps. And if he can go and do that and put a really good week together this week, then he can maybe earn himself some more snaps. And Jonathan Ford, I think, is one of those players that, again, it's really tough to find depth along the defensive line in season. So you put him on IR to begin, you get a 3-week grace period. So if they have more injuries throughout the course of the next couple of weeks, they could bring him back, put him on the active roster, and kind of go from there. And if not, they could theoretically just release him or put him on IR for the rest of the season, whatever ends up working out, and depending on how injured he is. But they can work those things out later, but at least it gave them an option for now. And we'll have to kind of see how that roster math plays out. But again, usually that kind of takes care of itself with injuries and those sort of things through the course of the season. Andy, non-Packers question, but last night sums up Wisconsin sports in the playoffs. Also, when are you going to see the full Josh Jacobs? We saw basically the full Josh Jacobs against Indy. So I think we've seen it. I think we would have seen more last week if it wasn't 28-0 by play, or, by the second quarter, and 21-0 by play 14 on offense. So I think we've seen what Josh Jacobs can do. I think we'll see more of him this week if everything goes according to plan. And I think he's been as advertised. Hold on to the ball. 2 fumbles can't happen, especially the one in the end zone. But overall, I think he's very much been as advertised and a very exciting player in this offense. And yes, last night definitely summed up Wisconsin sports in a nutshell that I don't even honestly want to think about it all that much. Packers will be without their top pass rusher, Devontae Wyatt, this weekend. Maybe Rashawn Gary can pick up some slack for a change. Listen, we've talked all week about Rashawn, right? He needs to be better. There's no two ways about it. We'll see if he can go out and have a big week this week against a Rams offensive line that's not exactly tearing up the league and lighting it on fire. So huge week for Rashawn Gary this week. Kind of random and more of an off-season question, but I haven't found anyone who knows the answer. Does Russ Ball report to Goot or Murphy? Do you know? He reports to Mark Murphy. So 3-pronged: Russ Ball, Brian Gutekunst, Matt LaFleur, all reporting up to Mark Murphy. They're all on equal footing. One's the salary cap expert, one's the GM, one's the head coach, and they're all on the same level reporting into Mark Murphy for now. And then obviously that will change once Murphy's gone next year. All right. Sorry again for the audio issues. Just getting back to where we got off of the audio issues and getting back to questions. Matt LaFleur's career coaching record when carrying 30 plus times, 31-1. My guess, Jesse, is that is probably most coaches. When they are able to run the ball a lot, it means that the game is going well. That means that they can stay dynamic. It means that they are staying balanced, and you have a great opportunity to win. So you get a lot of carries in the NFL. It means things are going your way more often than not. So it's not like, look at last week, right? If you go down 28-0 and they just would have kept handing the ball to Josh Jacobs, it's probably not going to go very well. You're still going to lose that game, but you don't get to 30 plus carries because you're down 28-0. And so it's just sort of, cause and effect more than anything else. Packers 10-1 versus the Rams in their last 11. Let's make it 11-1 in their last 12 this Sunday. Umar, what's up, fellow Packers? Hope you are all well. Hope you're doing well as well, Umar. Thanks for being here. Tucker Kraft 100 plus, Reed 100 plus, and Jacobs 100 plus. I'll take it. Sign me up. Matt LaFleur's career coaching. Oh, we did that, Jesse. Need our cornerbacks back. Rough week last week. Yeah, I agree. This will be a really nice week to get both Valentine and Jair back. And now, no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua, so that certainly helps. But listen, anytime you can have those guys out there and give yourself options with what you want to do at corner, just gives Jeff Hafley a lot more maneuverability and flexibility with how he wants to deploy the. That will certainly be helpful to his game plan this week. Can't beat the lineup Tuesday to Thursday for sure on Packer Day. Appreciate that, Omer. If everyone plays this weekend, how do you split up corner snaps this week? I mean, Jair plays the full amount of snaps. Keyshawn probably still gets the full complement of slot snaps. And then my guess is you still see a rotation between Valentine and Stokes, especially with Valentine coming back from injury. I bet they split it pretty close to 50-50. I've answered this a couple times before. I don't know the whole story with Brandon McManus. I don't know if he should be completely exonerated or in prison or anything in between. I know the NFL exonerated him. I don't know what the Packers' appetite is for the PR situation, whatever that may be. I specifically try not to look into too much of this stuff when it comes to the off-field stuff, just because I don't want to. I don't care. It's not what I want to cover. So if the Packers feel like Brandon McManus is not a off-field concern, he's not a PR issue, and that he can come and help this team kick, then yeah, they should bring in Brandon McManus. If he is a crappy human being that doesn't deserve to be signed, then I hope they don't. Or if they have worries about the PR or anything like that, then, or if they don't think he's better than Braden Narvison somehow, then they shouldn't. But this is one I'm just going to lean on the Packers for, and that's all I know about it. And I guess I could look it up and have a take, but listen, those are no-win situations, right? There are going to be people, no matter what happened, there are going to be people that believe that he's innocent. There are going to be people who believe that he's guilty, and you're not going to convince him any other way. So if he did shitty things, no, sorry for swearing, but if he did shitty things, I hope he gets his comeuppance. And if he didn't, I hope he's cleared and he can end up with a team and have a great career in the NFL. Just put it that way. Same thing I talk about with Brett Favre is I don't even want to go into the details of everything. If he did crappy things, hope he gets his comeuppance. If he didn't, hope he's cleared and can go on to be the legend that he was in Green Bay. So simple as that. And which means extremely complicated, of course. Green Bay needs to stop looking for athletes on D. It's not that easy, Ralph. It's really, really not that easy. You know, you can fill your team with instinctive, good football players and be a really slow team that does not have the athletic ability to compete in the NFL. And you can have all the athletes in the world, and if they're not instinctual and playing good football and doing the right techniques, they're not going to be any good either. I mean, here's the thing, right? If you get a football player that is a unbelievable athlete, has great instincts and unbelievable technique, they're going very early in the draft. They're going to be a massively signed free agent, a huge money free agent, and they're going to be the stars of this team. There's a shortage of people who have great instincts, great technique, and are unbelievable athletes, best of the best, and can go out there and do everything. Everyone wants to have your cake and eat it too. They all want that perfect player. Not many exist. And when you get one, you hold on to them, or at least you should. New York Giants with Xavier McKinney. But when you get them, you should usually hold on to those guys. But there's just very, very few that set you apart that way. The thinking, especially when it comes to a draft standpoint, is, all right, I can go out and I can find instinctual football players who are, have great technique and work hard, etc. But I can't teach them the athletic side. I just can't do it. I can't make them faster. I can't make them stronger. I can't make them bigger. Like, they're going to be limited in some capacity. And what Ron Wolf said is you draft exceptions to your, guidelines of what you want as athletes. And you all of a sudden end up with a team full of exceptions, and you can't compete on Sunday because you're just not physical or aggressive or athletic enough, whatever it is. I should say physical or athletic enough or fast enough of what you need to be. And that becomes a problem. And so what they do, especially when it comes to a draft standpoint, is you draft the athletes, you draft the super freaks, and then you hope that your coaches can teach them the technique and the instincts to become a great NFL player. And that's the thinking. And, usually what you'll see is in the first round, what do you get? You get a lot of guys that have a lot of everything, that have the high-end freak athleticism, that have had the production in college, that also have shown the ability to have great technique and good instincts. Those are the guys that are going in the first round. In the second round, it's usually, and even the third round, it's usually the guys that have unbelievable athleticism still, but maybe are unproven, or the instincts aren't quite there yet. And that you're going to have to teach them some of the technique stuff. And then you get into round 4, 5, 6, 7, where it's usually one or the other, where they are a freak athlete, but they suck at football basically, but you're hoping you can get them to the level of being a good football player. They're going to probably have to start on special teams and kind of develop from there. Or you get the guys who are super instinctual and that do have great technique, but they maybe aren't the best athletes in the world. And you're going to hope that they can overcome it and that they're being able to take great angles and have a quick first step and just know where they're going at all times and reading defenses or reading offenses, whatever it might be. Like that's going to set them apart and you're going to be able to win with those guys. And there are success stories from all of those realms, the guys that you expect everything from in the first round. And there are busts in the first round, the guys that are super athletes that you know are going to need a little bit more technique work. Success and busts from both of those, and guys that you think are really good football players that have all the instincts and everything that you need, but don't have the high-end athletic ability. There are success stories and busts from that group as well. But if you look at it, what the results will tell you, if you look at the All-Pro list, at the Pro Bowl list, I mean, almost every single one of these guys is 7, 8, 9 RAS, relative athletic score guys, like almost to a T. It's just top end athlete after top end athlete after top end athlete after top end athlete, like almost to a T. It is crazy, like 95% of them. And like nobody, like maybe you end up with like one guy who's under like a 5 RAS. So when you draft early, when you're drafting specifically, when you draft early, you're going big game hunting. You can find good players in the NFL. That's not a huge issue. You can find average to good players in free agency. You can find them, off of other teams' practice squads sometimes, like we've seen Green Bay be apt to do from time to time. You can find solid play. What you cannot find usually are the top tier players. So in the draft, you are going big game hunting, especially early in the draft, and you're trying to take some big aggressive swings, and hopefully that you can end up with your coaching and your staff in place with some of these all pros or Pro Bowlers. If it's great to have good players. That's never a bad thing, but you're trying to get guys that are going to be able to be above and beyond and set your team apart, not just another, cog in the wheel. You're looking for the studs, the all pros. That's what you're hunting for early in the draft. So that's why it's taken that way. And more often than not, that's the right approach to take. Now, it takes everything, right? Like when you're scouting these players, you have to be able to tell, all right, they're great athletes, but do they have the propensity and ability to become a good football player at their, specific position? And, Quay Walker is a great example of this. Quay Walker is a phenomenal athlete, but when you're scouting him, you have to be able to say, yes, he's a great athlete, but can he become an instinctual linebacker that can play the position the right way and be physical enough to be able to take on blocks and get off of them and go make plays and make reads and do everything that he needs to do to be that all-pro / Pro Bowl caliber linebacker, or just a good linebacker, right? And what I've learned, the one thing I've learned, especially at the linebacker position, that's the one position where, man, instincts are king. And yes, you want athletic guys. There's no question about that. But instincts are so insanely important at that position in the NFL. Like, because you are reading everything. Teams are attacking you, and they're going to eye candy you to death. They are going to motion. They are going to orbit. They are going to play action. They are going to do everything to mess with you. They are going to mesh. They're going to cross. They're going to do everything they can to get your head spinning. They're going to counter. They are going to draw. They are going to screen. It is their job to make the linebacker's job a living hell. And they have to sort of sort all of that out in real time and go make a play. And if you don't have that level of instincts at that spot in particular, it really, really makes it difficult. And I'm not saying that Quay can't get there or, whatever. I don't think he's gotten there yet. I don't think it's trending in a great direction. But that's why they take players like that early, is because, again, you can't teach the athletic side of things. And if you look again at all the all-pro and Pro Bowl players, they're all usually super freak athletes. So that's what you're hunting for. I get it. Now, when it comes to free agency, and we can even talk about Xavier McKinney on this a little bit, right? Because I don't think McKinney would normally fit Green Bay's like athletic thresholds for what they would look at from a draft standpoint. Let's see if I can pull it up really quick here. Sorry for the wait. The RAS site, just with all the players in it now, it usually takes a little bit longer. Well, I'll look at that in a second, but I don't think he hits like their normal thresholds, but you're no longer like, I don't want to say guessing, but you're no longer like scouting them to be like, what are they going to be? You're not projecting. That's the word I'm looking for. You're not projecting anymore when you're signing players in free agency. When it comes to free agency, it is more of like, are they good or not? And so you don't have to look at that stuff as much, because you can look at the tape in the NFL of Xavier McKinney and be like, oh yeah, he's just great. Yeah, Xavier McKinney's a 5.82 RAS guy, and didn't do the agility testing. He was in the 38th percentile for weight at safety, only ran a 4.63, 55th percentile. His 10-yard split was a 30th percentile. So like not probably their typical Green Bay Packer that they would look for from a draft standpoint, but you're not projecting anymore when you sign players. You're just going out and getting the guys that already were good in the NFL. So there's a difference in how you go about acquiring those players and evaluating those players. But what Goody does from a draft standpoint, the philosophy is right. Now you just have to evaluate and make sure that those athletes can become the players that you're expecting for. And you don't need to hit on all of them, by the way. And there's different ways, again, that you can get players through the draft. Like, you know what? Dontavian Wicks in the 5th round and Zach Tom in the 4th round and Rasheed Walker in the 7th round. Like, you know, hitting on those guys is massive as well. So it's not just like, yeah, they may have missed a few times in the 1st round. That's possible, but hopefully they're making up for it with some of those picks in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round or undrafted free agency as well, because it all plays a part in their developmental process and getting this team together to try to be the best team they can possibly be. Any chance the NFL ever adopts college OT rules? Last night's ending was awesome, but still doesn't compete with some of those 3 OT finishes you see in college ball. I don't think so, Brandon. This is an argument as old as time, right? I know everyone has their own opinion on what they would like to see for OT. I like a part of me, and I guess don't pay that much attention to it or haven't looked into it in a while, or it's just been a hot second since we've had this situation come up. But like a part of me almost like forgot that it was like as soon as they scored the touchdown, meaning Atlanta, I had to like do a double take of like, does Tampa get the ball again? And they do in the playoffs, if memory serves. I don't think I'm saying anything wrong there. In the playoffs, if you score a touchdown, then the other team gets to respond one time, if I remember correctly. In regular season, you only get to respond if it's a field goal, again, if I remember correctly. But it still feels wrong in some capacity that if you get the ball and go down and score, that the game is just over, that the other team doesn't get the ball at all. And to an extent, I think the weird thing for me from an NFL standpoint is what are you trying to prevent? Like the NFL is the king of wanting more football. So are you telling me that if the NFL had their choice last night between the game ending and Tampa getting a rebuttal, would the NFL not want the rebuttal? You're talking about a few extra commercials. You're talking about extra football time on TV. You're talking about a more exciting brand and a more exciting game. Like, who's the one outside of Atlanta Falcons fans or the Falcons last night? Who's the one that's like, yeah, boy, it would suck if Tampa really got another chance to go down and score a touchdown and either go for 1 to tie or 2 to win? Like, who's against that? That I don't understand. I do get to some extent, like when it's not a primetime game or you get to that next window and games are still going on, sometimes that can be an issue, but I don't know. I still feel like it's a better thing. So I know you don't want games lasting forever, but you have a 10-minute limit in OT. I don't know. Like, to me, it is a more aesthetically pleasing brand of football if there's a rebuttal there. I don't know that I need the college rules. I'd be fine with it, quite frankly. I wouldn't hate it. I kind of like the way that it is in the NFL, but just give the other team a rebuttal and then go from there. And to me, that's, I don't know. I get the idea too of like, hey, the defense is important, and if you don't want to lose the game, get a stop. But I don't know. Again, who's against the other team getting the ball and having a rebuttal? That's awesome for TV. That's awesome for football. That's exactly what you live for, is like Baker Mayfield, Tampa Bay, one drive, win or lose. Like, again, that's a beautiful situation. So for me, I would like to see it changed a little bit and at least get that rebuttal for in last night's game for Tampa Bay as an example. I was stoked about what Half wants to do this year and expected a defensive explosion. I also expected Gary to be the bowling ball full of knives. What needs to be put in play for us to kick ass? The first thing I'll say, Dan, is we're a month in, and you've had some mobile quarterbacks that they had to go against in those first couple weeks that I think changed the game plan up a little bit. And I think Jeff Hafley, it takes time. Like we talk about all the time of how, players in the NFL, they're rookies and it's going to take them time to get up to speed. The same thing goes for general managers, for head coaches, for defensive coordinators. You are offensive coordinators. You are not a finished product when you are in your first or second year as a play caller or whatever it may be, or as a GM. Like, it takes time, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. Jeff Hafley is going to have to make some mistakes, and he's going to have to figure out what works in the NFL, what doesn't work in the NFL, what plays to call when, what his guys do well. This is not a, just an automatic, you get to take the job and you're just going to be awesome at it. It's going to usually take a little bit of a learning curve. And we saw even last year, Matt LaFleur, a very accomplished offensive play caller, he got a whole new set of players and a whole new, basically a group of talent that he had to figure out in real time and say, what do these guys do well? What can Jordan do that I'm asking him to do? What does he not do? What does he like to do? And same thing with all his playmakers. And it took him till midway through the season to really kind of figure out, okay, now I understand what all these guys do, how the pieces all fit together. And then it kind of took off from there. Now, this could be another situation where we go 2 or 3 years with Hafley and it's just constantly disappointing. We could go 3-4 weeks from now and be like, oh my goodness, are you seeing what Jeff Hafley is doing? Like, this is what we expected going into the offseason. But 1 month does not a evaluation make. I've seen some really good things out of Hafley. I've seen some things that make me a little bit concerned. And it's not even honestly that much with Hafley as it is just with the players on the field. And now you're starting to think of like, all right, these guys didn't fit in a 3-4 with Joe Barry. And now some of them aren't necessarily fitting in a 4-3 with Jeff Hafley. Maybe it's not the scheme. Maybe some of these players just aren't who we expected them to be. And even that, I'm not there yet. I want to see how this continues to play out. Let's see how they play against the Rams. Let's see how they play against the Cardinals and the Texans. Let's see how this next quarter goes. First quarter, I would say incomplete to disappointing, slightly disappointing with some really cool turnovers in there that help kind of balance things out a little bit. But I want more. I think everyone wants more. But let's see what this second quarter brings. And let's let Jeff Hafley get his feet under him. As far as Rashawn Gary, again, we've talked about that all week. He just needs to be more impactful. And I thought Jeff Hafley had a great quote this week of saying they need more from Gary and Gary needs more from Jeff Hafley. And they need to get him in positions to be successful. Quite frankly, thought they did a week ago. I thought they got him in a couple advantageous looks and Gary didn't take advantage of it, but I appreciated what Jeff Hafley said nonetheless. But the key message there is they know they need more from Rashawn Gary. And I think Rashawn Gary probably knows that they need more from Rashawn Gary. Let's go see if we can do it this week and get back on track. And sometimes with players like that, just takes one. You get that sack and all of a sudden it's like, okay, yep, I'm back. All right, I can still do this. And then all of a sudden it just kind of, it's second nature and you start seeing these sacks pile up. So hopefully that's the case with Rashawn going forward. Matt, thank you so much for the super chat. Double super chats. Really appreciate that. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like defenders, when we're returning punts, are right on top of us immediately compared to other special teams. Have you noticed that as well? It does seem that way, Matt. I'll be honest. I don't watch special teams. Like I don't do the all 22 of special teams and grade the special teams. So I do a little bit less with that. Just maintaining my own sanity. I can only nerd out so much on so many things. My nerd level has reached max capacity, but it does feel like there hasn't been really any opportunity for returns on punt returns. I don't know if that's just due to great hang time by the punters that were punting it to Green Bay, or whether the jammers are not doing their job. I'd have to go look at it closer, but I do agree with your overall sentiment that it does feel like the returners have not had any room to operate once they get the ball. Dan, thank you again. It's impossible to know what a player is going to be, but following a proven matrix is key. Teams stumble on a McKinney. It's all a roll of a dice. I think that's the big thing. I think overall Goody's done a really good job drafting and finding talent. Like this is a massively talented football team. Like there is a ton of some that is still unproven talent, some that is getting there, and some that is clearly proven. But there's a lot of talent on this team and depth on this team. It's a team that has the ability to go out and compete and win, in my opinion, basically every single week. So I think Goody's done a really good job of sort of molding and maneuvering this roster. Is it perfect? No. Is there any perfect roster in the NFL right now? No. But yeah, I think overall he's done a really nice job. I think a lot of this is going to be judged on his last few drafts and to see, who can kind of reach the level that we're expecting. Can Jordan Morgan be a really good offensive lineman? How high of a ceiling does Javon Bullard have? Can Edgerrin Cooper become the linebacker that Green Bay so desperately needs him to become? Same thing with Tyron Hopper. What does Marshawn Lloyd look like when he comes back? And Evan Williams end up being a stud if he ever gets legitimate playing time? You go back to the LVNs, Devontae Wyatts, the Quay Walkers, the Christian Watsons, Romeo Dobbs. Like there are players that are still in that realm of like, are they going to be great? Are they going to be good? Are they going to be okay? Are they going to be bad? Are they going to have to move on? And there's still a range there. And I think how those players take that step or don't take that next step over the course of the next couple of years will go a long way in defining the ceiling for this team. But there's a lot of talent. Now it's up to the coaches and the players to reach that ceiling, get the most out of them, and make sure that this team is in a position to be ultra successful both now and in the future. Alex, which wide receiver do you predict will be called up from the practice squad? Don't know much at all about any of them yet. I'll be honest, Alex, I haven't done any work on Cornelius Johnson. I haven't looked at any of it at all. I did a little bit of work on TJ Luther. He's definitely a Packers type wide receiver. I would guess Julian Hicks. I really liked Julian Hicks both as a UDFA. He was one of my favorite UDFAs that they brought in. And then I thought he had a nice camp, sort of quiet, but he can block on the outside a little bit as well. My guess is Julian Hicks, but this could easily come down to, does TJ Luther give them a gunner on the outside in teams, or or who's the best blocker on the outside? It's going to come down to that stuff. And quite frankly, I don't have a good enough feel for Luther or Johnson, but I would definitely not be mad if it was Hicks. And the little that I did see out of TJ Luther, he looked like a fun player as well. We'll see. It'll be interesting to kind of keep an eye on. All right. Chad, Ralph, preach, brother. We need football players, guys like McKinney, Williams, and Bullard. Andy, what's the thing that concerns you about the Rams game? The only thing that concerns me about the Rams game is how confident I feel about the Green Bay Packers in this game. Matthew Stafford gives you cause for concern. He is a very talented thrower, and even with lesser wide receivers can still find ways to pick you apart. He's seen everything. If you get too aggressive, he'll know where the exit valves are and can find those easy throws. So I think that always gives me some concern. I think just, again, a young team going West Coast. Matt has not always done great going West Coast. That's been a little bit of an issue in the past. But as far as the X's and O's go, and like the depth of both teams and everything like that, there's nothing that I point to where I'm like, oh, this is going to be a long day. Like, I don't know how Green Bay deals with this. Green Bay is just the better team. They're the better team on paper. They have better athletes. They have better football players. They are, to me, it's not close, but this is the NFL. You never know what's going to happen. I pointed to earlier in the week of how, this is sort of a similar situation that Green Bay was in last year, where week 4 last year was arguably one of their worst games of the year against Detroit on Thursday Night Football at home. They lost a big divisional game at home. Wasn't even remotely close. Now they were closer this year at the end to Minnesota, but this year NFC North game went down 28-0. Hopefully is one of their worst games of the year when you look at at least the beginning of it. And then last year, week 5, they went to the West Coast, Las Vegas. They played the Raiders. And your thought was, this will be a get-right game for Green Bay. They'll get the win and they'll, get back on track. And they didn't. They lost that game. And so the thinking here is that you got a West Coast team. They're beat up. This should be a game for Green Bay to get back on track and hopefully doesn't follow the same routine. Hopefully they learn from their mistakes from a year ago, can go out West Coast, play their best brand of football. And if they do, it's, again, to me, it's not even close. So there's nothing in particular from an X's and O's standpoint that scares me, or a roster standpoint that scares me. Just going West Coast with a young team in a game that kind of everyone expects you to win. You never know what's going to happen. And that's my only concern in this one. Kyle, thank you for the super chat. What do you think is going on with the interior of the defensive line? Kenny is not showing up much. Maybe Slayton needs to be replaced with Jonathan Ford. I don't think that's going to serve you well. I think Jonathan Ford is a 8 to 10 snap rotational defensive lineman at best. I don't think he's going to give you anything. It's been a slow start. I think Wyatt's playing good football before the injury. I was pleased with where he was at. Kenny's had 2 okay games, like 2 average to okay games, and he's had 2 bad games. Last week was okay. He was my second highest graded player on defense, although it wasn't that high of a grade. It was, slightly above average. Just not a lot of big time players on defense last week, as you would imagine, again, going down 28-0 early. But I think Kenny needs to be a bit more physical. I think he needs to get off of blocks better, hold up against double teams better. TJ Slayton's had a rough start to the season. He does not look like even where he was a year ago, quite frankly. Carl Brooks has not had the impact plays that he did when given an opportunity a season ago. We haven't seen any of Colby Wood. And like I said, I think Devontae Wyatt had been playing solid football, but now he's out. Again, to me, this is not a scheme thing. To me, this is not a lack of talent. Just guys got to go and do their job. And we have not seen it enough from this defensive line in general. And that goes for the interior. That goes for Gary and Smith. And to a lesser extent, maybe Enigbari and LVN on the outside. But just that entire group has to be better. They have to find a way to unlock all 8 of those guys this week. Wooden instead of Wyatt. There's a ton of talent there. You got to be productive. They have not been anywhere near productive enough. What's good, Andy? No question. Just hoping everything is good with Romeo. Missing a game sounds serious. I'm right there with you. I hope he's doing all right. Has Ryan this year to date graded out better, higher than Runyon did last year per your analysis? Oh yeah, easily. So let me just go over it really quick. But Sean Ryan so far through his 4 games this year is at a plus 1.90 grade. In fact, this may stun you, and some people may disagree, which I'm always okay with. I have him second on the offensive line only to Elton Jenkins. I actually have a slightly better grade on Sean Ryan so far than I do with Zach Tom. And that's largely due to the fact that usually Sean Ryan, when he's winning in the run game, is a little bit more effective as a run blocker. Zach Tom's a solid get in the way run blocker more often than not and seals very well, but he's not as much of a mover. Whereas you'll see actually Sean Ryan maul some people from time to time. But I actually have a slightly better grade on Sean Ryan than I do on Zach Tom. So yeah, Sean Ryan right now is at a plus 1.90 grade for the season. Just to give you an idea, John Runyon Jr. last year on the whole was negative 4.95. Sean Ryan was at a plus 0.05 last year. So he's playing significantly better. And like, this is going to sound conceited or to toot my own horn, but honestly, it's always encouraging is all it is when I have a grade like that on Sean Ryan. Like I said against Tennessee, that he was my 3rd highest graded player on offense and that it was his best game of his career. And then last year, Steno, 2 days later in his press conference said it was the best game of Sean Ryan's career. And then this week I had the 2nd highest grade on offense on Sean Ryan and said it was even a better game. And then Steno goes in his press conference this week and said it was an even better game than he had last week. And that was now the best game of his career. So it's fun for me when, you do these every single week, you watch every player and every play, you put all the grades together. And when you hear things like that match what I'm seeing, it's just, again, it's not to toot my own horn or be conceited or anything like that. It's just like, it's reassuring of like, all right, I'm seeing what I'm supposed to be seeing. And that's important. So to me, he's been playing really, really good football to the point where I wouldn't do a rotation with Jordan Morgan when he came back. To me, that's Sean Ryan's job right now. He's been awesome. I would go left to right exactly as it is right now. And I would have Jordan Morgan continue to cross train at positions while he's healthy, and whatever position goes down, hopefully he can step in for. And that's where I would use Jordan Morgan right now, as sort of that super sub so you don't have to move a bunch of guys around on the offensive line. Obviously he's not going in at center, but you probably just move Jenkins to center if that's the case. And hopefully you can keep as few moves as possible, where maybe if Tom goes down, you just put Morgan at right tackle. If Ryan goes down, you put Morgan at right guard. If Elton goes down, you put Morgan at left guard. And if Walker goes down, you put Morgan at left tackle. And then if Myers goes down, you put Morgan at left guard, and then just move kick Elton into center and try to keep it for as few moves as possible. But I would use this time to cross-train Morgan a little bit more and just keep Sean Ryan at right guard. I've been very, very pleased with where he's been at so far. Thanks, Andy. Enjoy soccer practice. I appreciate it. I'll try to do maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and then I got to get out of here. Is Steno a pack? Clearly, Steno is a pack-a-day subscriber. Let's see. How the D-line responds to the criticism this week will be big. Yeah, I don't know that they need the criticism to get motivated. They see the tape. They hear it from their coaches. Like the coaches aren't dumb, guys. Like they know, they see it. And they see it too. And when we just talked about when Sean Ryan's doing well, they see it. And when players are not doing well, they know that too. And they're out there motivating their guys, and they know that those guys need to play better. The players know. So I don't think anyone needs me or anyone else in the media to be critical of a player for it to set the tone. Those guys are getting that in film study every single week. But now it's time to go out and understand, like, hey, this is a huge part of this team that needs to be better. And hopefully they do that this week. All right. Andy, thanks for doing these. Father Son Packers podcast says, hi. If the pass rush doesn't get home in this one, do you think they'll do 5 more or do more 5-man fronts? Seems like it created some one-on-one matchups last year. I think anything's on the table to start creating pressure if they need to. Again, just like anything, there's advantages and disadvantages. I think they're going to need to kind of mix some things up from time to time. But overall, I think anything's on the table to try to create that pressure that they need. Fred's got to drop. If Fred's got to drop, then I got to drop as well. Hit the like button. All appreciate that, Fred. As I mentioned, I got to get out of here. I had a hard cut off at 4:45. Great question. Sorry for the issues with the audio to begin with. My first time I ever think I screwed that up. So hopefully that's the first and the last, but we'll go back to the tape. We'll review everything, make corrections, get our pad level right, and make sure our audio is set up correctly moving forward. I hope you all have an amazing weekend. I will do a pregame likely on Sunday. I'm likely going to do it from like 11 a.m. to noon. So before the noon games start, because I know everyone just wants to watch football anyway. So probably pregame 11 to noon on Sunday, and then a postgame pretty much as soon as the game ends is my plan right now. Of course, great episode for you tomorrow lined up as well. Had some awesome Ross content today with PFF, so make sure to check that out. And then the pregame show on Sunday, or the preview show on Sunday as well. And of course, all the great content on the audio side of things. I will see you all very, very soon. Have a safe and fun weekend. Enjoy the game on Sunday. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.